Welcome back. It is time for Silver and Black today, an Odyssey original podcast covering your Las Vegas Raiders, the Tuesday edition here on June 6th. Yes, June, not the best football month. Okay, OTAs, yeah, okay, but camp is a month and a half away, and that's really what matters, and we're getting there. Scott Gulbransen, your host. Mo Moten is off this week, but that doesn't mean that you just have me, because we can't do that to you. We can't just leave you alone with Scott. No, we're bringing in our good friend Murph from Raider Fan Radio. We're going to do a Voice of the Fan Summit right now for early summer as he joins us from his home down in Nashville. And Murph, the fan cave is in the process of being moved. It was the best studio in the history of Raider creatordom. No, I mean that too. That's not.
Thank you.
But now you're going to recreate. You're doing it even better. We're not going to give people details. But how's your summer going so far? How you doing in this dead period without real significant football stuff?
I'm doing amazing. I mean, my personal life couldn't be better. Getting ready to move into the new digs, as you mentioned, and we're going to have Fan Cave 2.0. So in the meantime, I'm in my little makeshift office here. But anyways, yeah, and I appreciate the compliments about the Fan Cave, and the next one should be even cooler. So we're looking forward to that, and setting up a full-on podcast studio for Raiders Fan Radio. So it should be really cool. But anyways, yeah, my personal life, Scott, couldn't be better. The best relationships I've ever had my whole life. My kids are amazing. My work life is great for the day job. If only this Raider thing would figure itself out, then it'd be perfect, But I'm actually oddly encouraged, which and I often use the term, I thank the Raiders for relieving me of the burden of expectation. I use that term, and usually that hits around September or October, depending on how the season is going. But I felt that real early on. When kind of this off season, I think a lot of what's gone on with the front office decisions. But I got to tell you, man, I mean, it's my silver and black heart is beating heavy today, because I watched this whole content day that the Raiders had on the YouTubes, and here I go. I'm feeling encouraged again. And so I'm thinking we're going to win the division after this whole thing today. Cause I mean, they sure know how to JT.
Get you excited.
And Eric Allen and those guys, and having Dave Ziegler on. I mean, Max Crosby. Yeah. I mean, they sure know how to fire you up, man. And I'm first in line for it.
Well, what's crazy about that too is they went 3 hours live from the facility in Henderson. As they basically, it's picture day. Right? They're taking all the pictures, all the stuff you see when you watch Monday Night Football and the guys are on. That's all stuff they do at one time during the summer. And then all the NFL teams share it with one another. Of course, the Raiders get all their photography for marketing purposes and all that stuff done. But even that, we love football so much that we want to watch that now, right? It's like, hey, guys, they're painting the bathroom at Raiders facility. Let's put it on live. People will watch it, right? They will watch it. But to your point, you get to see them, and it's like this is the last kind of opportunity to see guys before you get to camp. So I totally get that. And the reason I wanted to have you on today too was to talk about sort of, I've gotten this weird feeling from Raider Nation this offseason, because when we hear from people, we hear a lot of negativity. Now, Murph, you are a positive guy. Even when things are going tough, you're always looking for the bright side. But overall, I want to get your impression of how the fans are doing out there, what you're hearing from them. You have such a great rapport with the entire nation, what you guys do with the One Nation Raider Foundation, all that stuff. You guys are in the know. You guys hear from them constantly. Tell me kind of what's the mood right now? Is it cautious optimism, or is it actually the opposite of that? Are people really pessimistic and they're just kind of living with it?
I often say, being optimistic is tough, because, with the Raiders track record over the past 20 some odd years, and you could even go back further than that. If you exclude the John Gruden 1.0 era, I mean, it's been a pretty dry desert in terms of, Raider success. And so it's tough to be optimistic, and it's easy. I think it's the path of least resistance to just say, well, the Raiders suck. I mean, anybody can do that. So it's challenging to find things that are positive about the regime or the players or whatever. I mean, obviously we can point to, Devontae Adams and Max Crosby and, guys like that are just slam dunk, soon to be Hall of Famers, their careers traject the way that we expect they will continue to. And so those are easy things to point at for positivity, but for the rest of it, like year in, year out overall, and especially coming off of a new regime on a 6-win season, the fans are surprisingly negative, I think even. And, we came off of last year. This time last year, Scott, all of us fans were thinking AFC Championship. Like this team was, stacked. We had this, Derek Carr got his best friend. We made some moves. I know a lot of people don't think we had enough moves on the defensive side of the football, but there was certainly movement and changes. And so there was a lot to look forward to. And we really overshot last year our expectations. When Vegas came out and announced that, the Raiders, I think over under on win total for the year was 7. We were all laughing our butts and going like, what are you kidding me? This team's going to win 11 games, 12 games, easy, slam dunk, right? Well, next thing you know, 6 wins turn in, and here we are with the burden of expectation. So this year is opposite. I think we're kind of underswinging it this time, and I hope that we're underswinging it completely, off base. And again, if listening to everything that the Raiders said today, they don't feel like there's a bunch of moves still to be made. They're not looking, I don't think, to market Hunter Renfrow. There's all these changes that like Raider Nation fan is still waiting around to happen. I don't get that sense that's going to happen after today, man. I think they're going to hold tight with what they've got, and they're thrilled with the people that they brought in. And maybe we as fans are underestimating their ability to evaluate talent and to plan for what's going on for this season.
Well, no, and I don't disagree with you. I think going back to last year, listen, Mo and I both on this show were a lot more positive about the Raiders heading into that season. And we thought the same thing about the over-under. We thought, hey, that's a 10-11 win team at least, right? Going into last season with all the moves that they made. This year, yes. So you have a disappointing year last year. You have all the churn with the Derek Carr stuff, of course. Then you get rid of popular player, obviously Darren Waller, even though he was hurt last year. And so it seems like it was a reset, and people, it's a rebuild. And we talked about that here. And I know what you're saying about the team saying they don't need to make moves. They said that last year. Remember about the offensive line? And we all said, they got to be kidding. There's no way. They got to improve that offensive line. Now, the offensive line got a lot better as the year went on. Jermaine Illuminor, who will compete for the starting spot again this year, has gotten a lot better. So you're right. We are not talent evaluators. Those of us who make radio, who make podcasts, whatever you are, a fan, it doesn't matter. These guys get paid to do it. So we'll have to see. I'm just surprised, I guess, that the expectations are so low. I see a lot of people, 2-3 wins. Let's tank for Caleb Williams. I've never had a team that I've liked or followed, Murph, where I rooted for them to tank for a draft pick. I never did, ever. It's like, no, you want to win. And if you don't, and you win 2 games and you get the guy you want, okay, great. But you don't ever want to go in thinking that, boy, let's be bad enough that we get to pick first in the draft.
I don't understand that line of thinking. I never have, Scott. I'm right with you, man. I never understood that whole idea of like tanking for a player or rooting for your team to fail. So X player or X whatever coach gets moved on from or whatever. I'm like, then it's probably an over dramatization, but I often compare it to like, a president. Like, I root for every single president that's ever been in office since I've been alive. Doesn't mean I voted for all the ones that were in office, but I root for all of them to succeed because I'm an American and I want our country to thrive in the greatest country that's ever existed. And I want it to do well. So I root for the guy, even if I don't vote for, I don't care. I'm going to root for him. But so like, I don't understand the idea of like rooting for your freaking head coach to lose. So you can like, what? Like, wait a minute. No, we should be rooting for the guy. And the day that he's not in silver and black, that's when I'll root for him to fail. But as long as he's representing our football team, I want Josh McDaniels to win 17 freaking games this year and be coach of the year. That's what I want for the like.
And it goes to your now infamous, I think, with some people, dead on for others. When you talked about Derek Carr, once Derek Carr was officially off the Raiders, you said, "Hey, man. See ya. Thank you. Goodbye. Time now. I don't care what happened." Right. So to me, that's the same thing. I don't understand it either. Okay. You don't like Josh McDaniels, the coaches. And I would say a big percentage of Raider Nation right now does not like him. And I understand it though, Murph, because he hasn't proven anything yet. Right. He's got to go out and prove it this year. I think at least, even if they don't make the playoffs or if they don't win 10 games, whatever it may be, he's got to show something. And some fans that are skeptical will be, I don't mind people being skeptical, but to your point, to root against a guy so that he gets fired, that just means your team gets worse. And who wants that? I don't understand it.
Yeah, let's rebuild again. Like, I mean, come on, how many rebuilds and how many resets and reboots or whatever you want to call them, whatevers? How many of those things have we been through? Even back to the Al years and everything. I mean, just let's move past that.
But Murph, does this change again? This is time. People have way too much time on their hands to think about football because there's no football to watch. There's no development going on with any kind of roster stuff. So do you think this changes I find that once we get to camp, those people are 2 or 3 game, we're going to win 2 or 3 games. They're sitting there and like, oh, did you see camp today? We're going to go to the Super Bowl.
I think so too. You know what I mean? That's when we start getting, after we try to get ourselves out and they pull us back in, right? Just like freaking Michael Corleone, so
yes, right.
It's, and hearing a lot of the talk today about how, they expect Trey Tucker is going to be one of those guys that's going to light it up in practice. He'll probably be a preseason. How many preseason darlings have we had?
Lots of them.
Shout out Chris Warren the third, right? So, I mean, we've had a million of those guys, and I got a feeling Trey Tucker could be one of those kind of guys that's going to, show out in preseason, and then all of a sudden Raider Nation is going to be, getting behind this team. But I'll say this though, that hype, if and when, not sure if, but when it happens, because it will, because that you can't, like I said, this on our last show, this ink doesn't come off. Like our Raider Nation, I mean, it's at the end of the day, week 1, you're going to be rooting for this team to win. Ain't nobody that's a Raider fan is going to be saying, oh my gosh, I hope the Raiders go out there and stink it up there today so we can get rid of Josh McDaniels in week 4. By the time the season starts, we're going to be all in. Now, that said, it's going to evaporate really fast. And I think that's maybe what the reality of it is that optimism that even last year that we carried through a tough start to the season. It wasn't until, I don't remember what week, somebody fact checked it off the top of my head, that we were finally officially eliminated from the playoff. But that lingered around to the Pittsburgh game. We were still in the conversation to make the playoffs. So now that said, if we have the same start like we had last year, then it's gone. Then the pitchforks and the freaking torches are going to be coming out, man. And because they'll be chasing Josh McDaniels down, because it's it is going to be ugly if we start up. And I'll say this too, Scott, our oh my gosh, I don't want to talk about our schedule is tough. And then you got the Saints schedule, which is cake. So is even what their potential first round matchups.
Yeah.
Derek Carr fan is going to be going, see, all we needed to do is if we have a rough start, it's going to be double ugly. Yeah. And I might just put Twitter away for a while if we go 0-4 or something,
Yeah. And then you think about it, because you think about the Saints in the division they're in. It's awful. Okay. You think about the Raiders, how good the division is, the AFC West, and it might even get better now. The talk is the Chiefs may be getting signing DeAndre Hopkins, right? And signing Chris Jones to an extension. So it's not going to get worse. The division in the AFC West is going to actually get better, and it could get better between now and kickoff. It's crazy that could happen, but that's how it is. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We are doing the Voice of the Fan Summit here with our good friend Murph, who you can catch on Raiders Fan Radio every week when they get going again. You're doing a kind of an abbreviated version. What are you calling it again?
Yeah, we do a thing called the rundown. That's what me and my best friend Swag Jeff. We went out and sat on the porch the other day and did a show.
Yeah. You were at a restaurant the other day?
Yeah, we did a live show from Domenico's Italian Deli. So we're still trying to get content out there, and especially because this is our big fundraising season for the One Nation Foundation. So we're trying to get some stuff, still coming out there on the not only on the YouTubes but also on the audio podcast.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the One Nation Foundation towards the end of the show here, because you guys got to help out with that. But we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get into more with Murph about what's going on with the Raiders. Jimmy Garoppolo's foot. Yes, some people would like to take that foot and put it where the sun don't shine, but we're going to talk about what that means and how Murph's feeling about it right after the break here. You're listening to Silver and Black today. Scott Gulbransen, Murph from Raiders Fan Radio, coming right back at you. Don't go anywhere. Is Jimmy Garoppolo's foot worth the stress? That's what we're asking here on the Fan Summit. We have our good friend and contributor who appears on our live post-game shows here at Silver and Black today. That is Murph from Raiders Fan Radio. Make sure you follow them on YouTube. You have to watch the show. It is one of the most enjoyable football experiences we'll have. Even after a terrible loss, they will make you laugh. They will make you cry. And then you'll send them money because of the One Nation Foundation. Yes, you will pay them to be miserable because they do such good work. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But Murph joins us. You can follow him on Twitter @_Murph, MURF, as well. All right, Murph, the whole Jimmy Garoppolo foot situation. it seemed to me a lot of folks in Raider Nation, a lot of fans, and and I talked about it on the show here. It seems like even though they knew ahead of time and everybody in the know, obviously signing the contract, knew about it, there was this sense that somehow was being held back from the fans. Now, it happens all the time, actually. But what's your feeling on the whole Jimmy Garoppolo? There's reports out. ESPN is saying, well, he may never play a game. We don't know that. We don't know what's going to happen. There's a chance he never plays a game in a Raider uniform. How slight is it? The Raiders tell us they believe he'll be back for camp. They're not even worried about it. They've told us that in the past, too, and it hasn't been true. It just depends on who's telling you that. But nonetheless, what's your view on Jimmy Garoppolo's foot and why it was such a trigger for Raider Nation?
Yeah, and speaking of that sensational reporting, right? Yeah, there's a chance he couldn't play, and his career might be over. There's a chance I might start week 1 too, but likely neither one are going to happen. But anyways, I think and mine included, my alarm went off when they delayed that press conference, and I think it did for a lot of people too.
Yes.
And listen, and with the dysfunction history that we've had with this organization, even despite some of the most winningest, eras of Raider football, there was still dysfunction. So when there's smoke, there's fire most of the time within this organization. So when this thing happened and we all went, uh-oh, did he fail a physical? Did he what? Well, sure enough, it wasn't so much, that on the nose as per se, is that they were rewriting that contract. So it didn't cost the Raiders a dime. Should he not be able to go? Now, I will say this, big props to Dave Ziegler. Like the Raiders are definitely, if anything, we are not getting involved in any bad contracts,
right,
anything that's going to, impact the team over a long period of time. And especially when there's a risk factor with a Jimmy G, even prior to this thing happening. So that said, I mean, look, I like to play craps when I go to Vegas, and I consider myself a bit of a gambler. These guys are really taking a swing on Jimmy G. I mean, they're not only banking on the fact that he's going to be healthy for training camp and healthy for the season, but that he's going to remain healthy. I think because when healthy, when you look at his numbers and you look at his ability to distribute the football, they were talking about it today, and I've been saying this too about Jimmy G. Any Raider fan that's critical of Jimmy Garoppolo, I say this: ask Brandon Ayuk, ask George Kittle, ask Deebo Samuel what they think of Jimmy Garoppolo. I'll bet you'd get a very common answer from those three guys, and it will likely be a very ringing endorsement. So that said, I trust guys like that more than I trust my own opinion or another Raider fan. Look, the system is the system, and yes, Jimmy G had a defense. Yes to all of those things, but the bottom line is that was the guy getting the ball to them, and they were wide open.
Right.
He knows exactly how to execute that offense. He knows all the checks and the audibles. They were again talking about it today. I think there might have even been a little bit of an indirect commentary on the previous quarterback about that, his ability to get them in and out of the correct place. And because also one thing I learned in listening to Andre James talk today, that he was responsible in Gruden's system for a lot of the mic checks. He was responsible for a lot of the blocking scheme around what the defense was presenting. In this offense, it's a lot on the quarterback.
Yes.
And
so the quarterback can see better too. I mean, it makes sense.
Absolutely. And so I think that was, again, I don't think that was Andre James taking a shot at our last number 4, but that's certainly like something to take into account. And we've heard stories about that, about, Derek checking in and out of plays that, maybe he shouldn't have been, and checking into runs that maybe didn't need to be runs. And because of a certain amount of pressure look and all these things. So all that said, I think that it was a very sound decision to bring in Garoppolo, but again, it's a swing, man, on him being healthy.
Correct.
If he's healthy, I'm all about, and I think we all should be all about it. But man, it really is an unproven. And so then the idea that, okay, you don't make a move for a quarterback early on in the first round. And I'm kind of glad they didn't. I mean, but at the same time, like, you got to have a franchise quarterback in the NFL. You have to. Yep. And is AOC 4 that guy? I mean, I don't know if he is or he isn't. Our old Sergeant Farva or whatever people are calling him, because he looks like the guy in the Super Trooper movies.
Yes.
But anyways, but I don't know if he's. I hope he is. I mean, he's certainly getting a lot of reps right now.
I doubt that. Yeah, he's get a lot of reps, but it's in shorts and a helmet, right? When people are saying, "Ooh, he looks great in OTAs," it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. When they start hitting pads and guys are coming at you, that's when it really matters. So we'll see.
Right.
But to your point about Garoppolo, I think you're right, and this is the point I made when this story broke, which was, listen, it was a risk to sign him to begin with. They're two separate issues: the foot issue and just signing Garoppolo. Period. Right, to your point. When he's on and he's not injured, he's a good quarterback. I got in an argument with somebody online about, well, when they went to the Super Bowl, he had nothing to do with it. I'm like, did you see his numbers for that year? Get out of town. Yeah. Well, yeah, but he had this and he had that. It doesn't matter. You still have to have the ability to do it. And Jimmy Garoppolo does, but he can't stay on the field. Mo said on this show that he doesn't believe he'll play more than 10 games. If he doesn't play more than 10 games, it's going to be hard for the Raiders to win 5, I think. So that's where, to me, I understand. I think that's what it was. The people being uncomfortable with Garoppolo and his history suddenly are faced with wait a minute, he had another surgery after we signed him? Wait a minute, this is not what we want. So I get it. It's a bridge quarterback. There's no question about it. And to your point, the Raiders over the next 2 years have got to get a franchise guy. They decided not to trade up this year to get one. You understand that. Instead, they took a defensive end who's injured, by the way. So the injury thing on those 2 players, now I think he'll be okay. But nonetheless, one of those situations bites you in the backside, and that's a big, big loss.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, and O'Connell's he's a value play, man. I mean, that's a 4th round guy that you're going to put, again, you're pushing their chips in, so I refuse to be completely skeptical on the front end. I want to see how it plays out. And
you have to let him play it out.
You have to let him play it out. And like I think like draft grades are some of the silliest things there are. And I know some people do that and that's content or show material. And I get all that stuff. And I don't begrudge anybody for doing draft grades. But to me, I think they're so premature. Like, you want to give a draft grade? Give me a draft grade on 2016. Give me a draft grade on 2018.
Or wait till February and give me a draft grade.
Absolutely. Like, this thing's got to play out before, but that said, like, man, a 4th round quarterback. I mean, they're banking on the idea that there's going to be a value play that he can develop over a couple of years. I mean, listen, we got Jimmy G in there. We've got Brian Hoyer, he's a capable backup. I don't think anybody's looking to him as to be a starter throughout the course of the year by any means. But now we got Sir Thomas Brady coming in there to, like he could be a mentor probably at some level. Like, I don't know.
He's going to mold Chase Garbers into a Hall of Famer.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. And but again though, Scott, like I think okay. If anything, here's what I think it's the most glaring at the quarterback position, because it's the most important position in the entirety of team sports.
Of course.
So I get why it's glaring at the quarterback position, but there are really a lot of positions that were of need for the Raiders that fans are looking at it and go, did they do enough? Did we do enough at linebacker? Well, according to the Raiders, they did.
Linebacker,
did we do enough
safety,
at quarterback?
Safety.
They think they did. They think with Chris Smith and with, they think that we've done enough. They think that by bringing in Epps, we've done enough at safety. They think, I always want to call him Mickey Spillane. They think that freaking Mickey Spillane and Divine Diablo are good enough. And then we've got Nate Hobbs playing in the corner, but then maybe kicking outside, and then Jacorian Bennett and and the interior with the development of Butler and Tillery being there. And of course, Max and Chandler, and now Tyree Wilson, they think they've got it. So, us as fans on the outside looking in, we're going, no, wait, you didn't do enough. But at this point, I got to trust, because we've not seen it. They believe it.
Right.
So I'm going to believe it too.
And Murph, you know what though, too? This is a little bit of recency bias by all of us, including fans, including media, anybody that covers the Raiders, which is the John Gruden era came back, the second era came back, so much excitement, right? Raider Nation was on fire. This is right before I started my show, or actually after I started my show, 2 years after. And people were so damn excited. And then everything that they did, with the exception of Max Crosby, Josh Jacobs, a couple examples, was terrible. So I think people, they're so gun shy, right? Because, we drafted this guy, I haven't heard this. Because most people are not draft nicks. They don't spend $50 on a draft magazine to follow what's happening with the draft. They don't spend an inordinate amount of time wasting their time on that stuff. They just don't. There's some that love it, and not begrudging them, but most people do not. but they know the Raiders draft history. So when they see them take Tyree Wilson instead of a quarterback, or they see them take somebody else they've not heard of, they get nervous. And I think that's where we're at, because it's gone so bad the last 4 years, for the most part, that people are nervous that you're not going to be able to draft enough players that are going to have enough impact. So let's go sign a free agent, a big name free agent.
Absolutely. And I'm one of those guys that, like, I don't dig in on the draft. Because I say all the time, like, I don't want to fall in love with a player, because then, all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's going to be a Bronco. You know what I mean, or whatever. So yes. I don't want to fall in love with any players in the offseason coming into the draft. I'll wait till they become Raiders, and then I'm their biggest fan, and I'm looking back at their game tape and their highlight videos on YouTube and all that good stuff. And like Christopher Smith is one of those guys. I vaguely knew who he was because I watched college football. But then you go back and you watch that and you're like, oh, wow, look at this. Is an instinctive guy. Like, he didn't flash at the combine, but man, this guy's a gamer, right? Like, so, so anyways, so that said, I hear that loud and clear, that idea that, like, and not only was it like our recent drafts with the Gruden era, but like even the Reggie drafts weren't that great. Aside from Gabe Jackson, Khalil Mack, and Derek Carr. Yeah. Like, aside from that draft, I mean, he hit on Amari Cooper, but it was, how big of a hit was that, like, and so, I look back at, those weren't spectacular drafts. And then the Al drafts, leading up to those, listen, I mean, Al Davis, I mean, I have all the respect in the world for him. And anybody that watches our show knows the amount of reverence that we had. We almost deify him on our show, but listen, man, he kind of freaking lost his fastball there towards the end. You know what I mean? Other than, like maybe like converting Nnamdi from safety into corner. Like, there was a couple things there towards the end where you saw those flashes of kind of classic Al, but outside of that, like, he kind of lost it. And so, it's been a long time. So I hear it. I hear it, and I get it. But also, I'm going to bring a bunch of gambling references tonight. But the dice have no memory. Yeah. Just because, Reggie did what Reggie did, and Al did what Al did, and whatever, Mayock did what Mayock did. Just because those things happen doesn't mean that Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels are going to follow the same pattern. Yeah. And until they do, I'm going to trust that it might be different, because I love this damn football team and I want them to be better.
And that's the point, though, Murph, is it's been so long since the Raiders have enjoyed some consistency, not just winning, right? Because you have a winning season here. Of course, you had 2002 going back to that era. Some kids listening to the show weren't even alive yet, but nonetheless, you understand that. But it's the consistency, right? So they get that's what I find with a lot of folks I talk to in Raider Nation, is they've been so conditioned to be disappointed, to your point you made earlier. And so I think that, and a lot of it comes back to trusting the organization. Some people like Mark Davis. Some people don't think he'll ever put it together enough. He now has a quote unquote real front office. If you look at names in that front office, I think it's the best front office the Raiders have had forever. Yeah. And so you got to let it play out. People, of course, are more impatient today than they were 10 years ago because of all the technology we consume. But nonetheless, I think that you look at that situation and you say, okay, you have to earn some of that trust. And I think that's what, even if the Raiders don't win the Super Bowl this year or even make the playoffs, if they can show growth, I think people just want to see some positive momentum. And that's not always judged by win. If you start to see that offensive line comes together, the defensive line starts to pop a little bit. Yeah, they might be short at linebacker, so they got some holes. But if you start to see them put things together, then I think you get the fan base excited about the future, because they just haven't had a lot of futures to be excited about.
Yeah, if they give us some exciting football, I think that energizes the fan base. I think that, let's see some strip sacks out there. Let's see some interceptions. Like, I mean, when was the last time that we had, a highly productive secondary that got the ball back for us? When was the last time that we saw somebody take a punt back or a kickoff back? Like, shout out Jacoby Ford and Johnny Lee Higgins, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? Like, it's been a hot minute since we had impact at let's block some kicks. Like, let's make it so the Raiders are, look, we were competitive last year and we gave up a lot of leads, and everybody automatically points to the defense. But guess what, guys? The offense couldn't convert on third down. We couldn't stay on the field. We gave our defense a short field to defend a lot of times. Like, football is the ultimate, symbiotic, complementary game. Like, there has to be consistency on both sides. And so, you can be, statistically, you can be great on offense and not put the ball in the end zone enough in the red zone. And be a terrible football team. Same thing on defense. You could give up a bunch of yards, but if you create turnovers, then all of a sudden you're playing a different level of football by doing those. And so I think that those kinds of things, and that's where I think back to like players like Jonathan Abram, who obviously didn't work out, but that potential that he had, that big hard hitting safety, he's going to come up and pop the ball loose. Like those kinds of things that like give us some plays that we can wrap our arms around a little bit. And like, to your point too, is that like, and I've joked about this, that like the most Raidery thing ever will be this team going 9-8 this year. And then the Raiders will go, hey, we got better. And all of us fans will be going, did you? Like, okay, like, yeah, you're better technically. It was just like Gruden's second year, third year, whatever it was. When he was like, you start off with 4 wins and then he moved up. So, last year, Josh goes 6 wins, Josh will go 9 wins and they'll be like, so it's enough to retain him. Half a Raider Nation will be losing their mind. We won't make the playoffs. Like, it'll just, we'll have a mid-draft pick. Like, you could just see this thing coming from a mile away. But now that said,
you're preconditioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that would be an absolute nightmare scenario unless, like I said, we see, Marcus Epps take a couple to the house or whatever. Like you're Tyree Wilson go blow up Patrick Mahomes and Max scoops it and scores. And we start seeing plays like this, and you see improvement in that explosiveness. Then I think that those highlight plays, that's what will encourage us as a fan base. Because without the highlights, I mean,
Yeah. Well, and I think too that the one thing that I know Raider Nation reacts so well to, and I get it as a fan, which is a team with a personality. And I mean a personality on the field. You talked about this last year in one of our early actually, I think it was the pregame show after the loss in Tennessee, right? That the person, where is the personality? And okay, it doesn't have to be Phil Villapiano, although that would be awesome from the 70s, but they have to have their own character, their own identity. And if they can build an identity that really appeals to fans, and let's say they go 9-8, okay, but those 8 losses, man, they took teams to the wire, and it was tough, and they were just a little bit short because they're short on the talent stick or whatever it is. Then you can see people get excited about it. But again, that is progress, and I'm not talking about progress where you lose 4 in a row, you win 5 in a row, you lose 3 in a row, you win 2. That kind of progress, but that you are in every ball game you play in, no matter who you're playing. And you can see the progress.
I would love to see this team take on an identity. I mean, because I'm with you, because we don't know what they're at this point. We really don't know what the hallmark is of this team, and we know kind of the history of the front office and what their hallmark is in a past existence with a different franchise. But what is their stamp going to be on the Raiders? Are we going to be able to tell the story of the Raiders and not leave these guys out? Are we going to have to tell the story of these guys to define what the history of the now Las Vegas Raiders is going to be? And I think that's important. And on those heels, again, to go to that video today, they talked a lot about the alumni coming in. And speaking of Phil Villapiano, bringing in Ted Hendricks and Art Shell, and of course the legendary Freddie B, and like all these amazing Raiders that came in. And I love that the Raiders, no one honors their past better than the Raiders. But as Fred Biletnikoff told me face to face, not to name drop, Frank Sinatra told me never do that. But Fred Biletnikoff said, we painted some really good lines a long time ago, and now it's time for these guys to paint their own lines.
There you go.
And so it's, while I think I hope that these visitations and these discussions and interactions when you see Max Crosby talking to Greg Townsend, I know Max has a reverence for Greg Townsend because he wants to beat his damn record.
Yeah.
And I hope that the rest of the Raiders buy into that and understand the value in the Raider mystique, the uniqueness of the Raider mystique. And I know it's never going to be Oakland again. And even though I'm old enough to remember those days and love those days and grew up in those days, and I know it's never going to be that again. And Vegas will be its own now legacy. And again, definition and whatever it's going to be going forward. But I hope that the players embrace what that was, that Raidery thing, man. I hope they embrace it and bring that to its whatever the current version of that can look like. And define that as their character. Because I think, look, if they start doing stuff like that, I almost started swearing there. Sorry, Scott. If they start doing stuff like that, they talk about energizing a fan base.
Oh, yeah.
Like, bring a little Villapiano, bring a little Jack Tatum, bring a little freaking, Mad Stork, Ted Hendricks. Like, bring some of that stuff to the modern day Raiders, and we'll get behind them real quick.
Well, and I agree 100%. They have to become their own Raiders, right? They have to make the name for themselves. And I love the paint your own lines. By the way, that should be a Raider Fan Radio T-shirt. By the way,
paint your own good lines. Idea. Okay, deal.
Okay. You got it. Okay,
and you got to sign it. We'll have a Scott Gulbransen signed version.
I'd be happy to, but that's it. They have to create the identity, and that'll make a big deal. All right, so we get through that one. All right, we're going to take our final break. When we come back, I'm going to throw some wild cards at Murph. But Murph, before we take the break, tell everybody about the One Nation Foundation, what you guys are doing. I'm proud to support it. We're proud to tell as many people as we can about it and what you guys do and how they can get involved.
Thank you so much, Scott, for that. And yeah, and cannot appreciate your support of the foundation enough. And yeah, giving us a platform to talk about it is just such a huge blessing to us. And thank you first and foremost for that. So One Nation Foundation, we formed it back in 2019 when we realized that we can make money with our dopey little show that we do, Raiders Fan Radio. And 100% of the money goes to Raiders related charities. And it's from direct donations from listeners to our show, any merchandise that you want to buy. Like if you want to buy a cool Raiders Fan Radio t-shirt, inspired by Van Halen, Scott. I figured you'd get a kick out of that. And so, you know, any of the money that we were advertising, any of the money that we get, we give it to the One Nation Foundation. And we've got some corporate partnerships that are pending that we're really excited about to announce hopefully later this summer. And so again, we give it all away. Our biggest that we give away to is the Bolitnikoff Foundation, which fosters a place called Tracy's Place of Hope and the Bolitnikoff Center of Hope. And they provide rehabilitative services and safe places for young women at risk of domestic violence and substance abuse. And so there's a lot of amazing, wonderful organizations that are out there in this Raider world, not just by the Raiders themselves, but by the players, current and past. And so we give to all of those. We've given to the Stabler XOXO Foundation. We've given to GoFundMe's. We've given to folks dealing with cancer battles. And it's been once upon a time, you know, the One Nation Foundation was a kind of like a back end to Raiders Fan Radio. At this point now, the reason we do our show is to promote the foundation. We want the One Nation Foundation to become something way bigger than our show ever was or could have been. And it doesn't come without, again, platforms like this. And thank you so much for that. And our goal this year is to write the Bolitnikoffs a check for $15,000. And 100% of that comes from our listeners, all the amazing listeners and supporters of Raiders Fan Radio. Thank you guys so much. And we want to make sure that everyone knows that, like, we're just vessels. I'm just the idiot in my bonus room with a microphone. It's our listeners and our collective group is who raises that money. And so we just love them very much. And thank you for any of those. If you want to donate, if you want to buy merch, you can get that at our website, RaidersFanRadio.com. You go to onenationfoundation.net, onenationfoundation.net, and you can hit the donate button and you can donate directly there. It goes straight to PayPal. And no Google cuts, no nothing. It's 100% of your money goes to the foundation. We don't pull any money from it. We don't buy tickets with it. We don't do nothing. We're all blessed in our day jobs and thankful for that. So this stuff goes straight to the foundation, straight to Raiders related charities. And so thank you again, Scott, for the platform.
Oh yeah, of course. And I'm telling you, you guys watch Raiders Fan Radio when they do their shows. And it's people giving money every week. And I'm not saying like they give once. I mean, these folks, Raider Nation, the family that you guys are, continually gives. And the content you do has a lot to do with that too. I know you don't want to take a lot of that credit, but it's fun. It's a great time. I know during the winter, I watch it on Wednesday nights. I'm smoking a cigar in the garage because it's too cold to go outside. And I'm having fun. I'm laughing my butt off. And my wife is opening the door and saying, "What are you laughing at?" I swag Jeff Murph, they just did. Yeah, it's all good stuff.
Somebody just got beat up by a sheet pan.
Awesome. All right, we're going to take our final break. When we come back, I will be back with Murph, and we will close out this edition of Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey Original Podcast. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey Original Podcast. If you don't already subscribe to the podcast, do us a favor and subscribe to it. Turn on the auto download. That helps us a lot. So every time a show comes out, every time we publish one, usually very early in the morning during the week, it will be right there for you on your commute. You got to love it, or your jog, whatever you're doing. It'll be right there for you. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you for the subscriptions. Hit the notification bell. Also, make sure you follow Murph, who's joined me today on the show. Mo's on vacation. So Murph is here, and you can follow him on Twitter @_Murph, MURF. Follow also Raiders Fan Radio on YouTube. You can go to RaidersFanRadio.com. All kinds of cool merchandise, including the shirt that Murph has on, is inspired by Van Halen. I love it. Fantastic. Look at that. Good stuff, man. So you could do that. And of course, OneNationFoundation.net, the foundation where you can also give to great causes around Raider Nation. All right, Murph, the Oakland A's are just a complete embarrassment in the world of sports because of their owner. The owner now wants to move them to Las Vegas. Both times that I lived in Las Vegas, I would have killed to have a major league ball team there. And the stadium situation in Nevada, the money that's needed seems to be hung right now. Doesn't seem like the Nevada state legislature is going to give them the money. Man, who would have thought that the A's would follow the Raiders to Vegas? I want to get your thoughts on this because you are an A's fan. You are from the Bay Area originally. Okay. So you grew up watching the real A's, not this team that has nothing to do with the Major League Baseball anymore. They might as well be in AAA. What do you make of all this? Can you imagine if the A's went to Vegas? I just don't see it happening because I think you have, like you have in Los Angeles with the Chargers, you have a dumbass owner who doesn't know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, I agree. And there's no guarantee that with a move that owner is going to choose to then decide to sink money into the baseball team. And, it's hard to be an A's fan. I mean, we lament about the old days of the Raiders and whatnot. And, and I'm a Warrior fan too. And I mean, I can remember the days where speaking of laughing stock of the leagues, like I remember when our best player tried to choke our coach, you know what I mean? Or did choke our coach, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so, I mean, like, there's been a lot of dysfunction in Oakland sports, but it's the A's, and you mentioned I'm a diehard A's fan. I went to the Oakland Coliseum in utero when my mom was pregnant with me for the 72 World Series. Like I literally have been going to the Oakland Coliseum since before I was born. And most of those were A's games because we were too broke to go see the Raiders. But my dad used to take me to A's games all the time. We'd sit out there in the bleachers and, you know what I mean? And I'd root for Reggie Jackson and all, just anyway. So there's a lot of history with that organization in Oakland, obviously. And so it's sad that, the city of Oakland not only is lost two of the three major franchises, but now is fixing to lose the third. As you mentioned, it kind of went from a done deal to a maybe. So it's interesting whether they're going to make it or not. But I'm with you. I'm a little tentative on the owner, but anyway, but to go back to kind of the original point is that it's tough to be an A's fan, and it has been for a long time. Even the Moneyball era, even though that we've had, glimpses of success, as a fan, what do you root for? You root for the team, but you root for players, and especially in baseball, and especially for kids in baseball, like Reggie was my guy when I was a kid. And as I became a teenager, it was, McGuire and Canseco and all those great Dave Stewart and Terry Steinbach. But those guys were together for long periods of time. In this Moneyball era, we've seen those players, all the great players for the Raiders, for the A's over these recent years, or even going back a ways now, they all get jettisoned. We see Jason Giambi leave. We see Nick Swisher leave. We see Jonas Cespedes leave. We see Mulder and Hudson and even Sonny Gray and you name it. Like all those players move on. And so it's tough enough to be a fan because you have this constant churn of players. And now you have a team that's dog crap and can't get out of their own way. And now has, facility uncertainty because they're playing. Look, I know it's our dump, and so we love it, but it's a dump. The Oakland Coliseum is just so far gone in terms of functionality as a facility. Like it's insane to me, Scott. And so, as an out of market guy now, because you mentioned I live in Nashville. I don't live in the Bay Area anymore, and I haven't for a long time. So when the Raiders left, it didn't hurt my feelings because look, they're not in my backyard anymore. Yeah. And I can just go visit Vegas instead of going back home. And same thing for the A's. When I would love to take in an A's game when visiting Las Vegas, but I think that it's tricky because until they move on from this ownership group, there is no slam dunk guarantee that they're willing to sink money into the team. And so it's kind of, again, rolling the dice. Like they're taking a big swing there.
And even though the A's have an amazingly rich history, you just mentioned all those guys, right? Going back to Jack, of course, Charlie Finley, all the great teams in the Oakland franchise on the baseball side. Like you said, it's been a really long time. And for whatever reason, baseball is not like football. The Raiders coming to Vegas, a lot of people had the same criticism, which was, oh no, you have to put like a expansion team in Vegas. It can't be somebody like the hockey, because hockey worked out. The Golden Knights, by the way, Stanley Cup Finals. And so you look at that, and that's the model people think will work in Vegas. But I knew the Raiders going to Vegas was a perfect fit because of all the things we've talked about all these years. The draw from LA. There's a lot of Raider fans already in Las Vegas. The draw from the Bay Area.
Amen.
And the fact that the Raiders are the Raiders, that brand is so big. The A's, great history, but not the same kind of brand, right?
Ain't nobody taking a Southwest flight from LA to go to an A's game. You know what I mean?
Correct. You happen to be in Vegas. Oh, my team's here. Okay, I'll go. Or if you can coincide your schedule with a game there, great. So I'm halfway there agreeing with some of the people who are saying, yeah, if you're going to bring a baseball team to Las Vegas, which would be awesome, not the A's, because it's not just because the A's, it's because the owner is dog crap. And if the owner gets his stadium and then comes in and says, we're going to do things how we've been doing them, then you got a brand new stadium in the Las Vegas Strip and there's nobody in it because they can't even win a game. And to me, that's dangerous. So I'd love to see baseball in Las Vegas. It's hard for me, not only because I understand I don't want to see folks in Oakland lose another team, but also just because I don't know that it'll work. I don't know that I would trust the guy.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think that if it does happen, I think that you almost got to rebrand the team, and I'm not a fan of that. I've said for a million years, like, if the Raiders stop being the Raiders, that's the only thing that'll keep me from being a fan. If they became the Las Vegas Renegades or whatever, I would cease to be a fan of this team because it's not the Raiders. The A's, like, I don't think I would be a Las Vegas whatever team name fan. I would probably root for the Giants or something, frankly, something that still I have roots or a connection to. Because I did grow up going to a lot of Giants games too. I know that's a lot of A's fans. They're like, what do you mean you can't like the Giants? I'm like, well,
baseball's baseball.
Baseball's different. And I grew up, and I'm old enough, and I think you are, Scott, too.
Yeah.
Interleague wasn't a thing.
No.
So like the A's and Giants weren't ever a thing unless they played each other in the World Series, in which case it was like, yay for them both, but I'm going to root for the A's to beat them. You know what I mean?
And if you wanted to see Willie McCovey, you had to go to Candlestick.
Yeah, had to go to Candlestick. Amen. Absolutely. And so it's a little bit different of a dynamic. But anyway, so I wouldn't root for that team, but I think that would be best for that team, like to rebrand, because like you said, like, everybody in Los Angeles, I mean, there's a handful of Angels fans, right? You got a ton of Dodgers fans. And then if you even go further south, you got folks like you that are big Padres fans.
Yep.
That there's not, and what is Las Vegas full of is a bunch of Southern Californians, for crying out loud. Ain't a bunch of A's fans rolling around Vegas. So
right.
I'm with you. You might have to rebrand the team and look, it's the team has been in Philadelphia, it's been in Kansas City, and it's been in Oakland. So this would now be the fourth city that the team would reside in. But again, I don't think you carry the mantle. I don't think you carry the elephant and the green and gold, and I don't think you can do it.
Yeah, and I think too, I hadn't thought about that, but I agree with you 100%. The case you made was strong. But I also think that if I'm the Nevada State Legislature and I'm going to build you a ballpark, or at least give you some of the money, then I'm going to say, listen, if we do this for the next 10 years, you cannot have a payroll less than X dollars.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Now, they could still screw it up because you could spend your money poorly. But I would put a minimum and say, look, unless your payroll hits this threshold, you don't get the money. I mean, we're not giving you the money. So you have to do that because that's what this guy's done. Now, you see.
And why doesn't MLB do that anyways? MLB's
agree.
had some of the funkiest governance, man.
Yes.
In terms of, and don't get me started on, like, I know I just said I like the Giants, but the Giants are the whole reason that the A's aren't in San Jose, which is where I grew up, and they had Cisco Park locked and loaded. They were getting ready to move 10 minutes from my house that I grew up in, and it was perfect. But the freaking Giants sued them for the South Bay rights and all this stuff, and I'm like, MLB just has some weird governance when it comes to that stuff. So I'm with you on that, Scott. Why they don't have that in place now to where there's a min max, like, it's crazy to me. Well,
and the Players Association in Major League Baseball has fended off the only sport without a salary cap, right? They have luxury tax. Doesn't matter. The Yankees blow through it every year because they make more money than anybody on earth when it comes to sports. So they don't care. Right. So there's no incentive to follow any kind of rules. And so small market teams have to overspend. My Padres, that's what they're doing right now. They hope they're going to win in the next couple of years because in about 5 years, guess what's going to happen? It's like, I can't afford this anymore. We're going to have to put it back down. So that's what those small market teams have to do. That's what the A's have to do is build it up. You have a 5-year window where you overspend, you lose money, but you got to have an owner that wants to win. If he's just doing a business, then you're Donald Sterling with the Clippers, who was profitable every year, and that team stunk, and then it turned out he was a racist too. So, oh well, that's the way it goes. But nonetheless, it's just interesting. It's just so weird to think 10 years ago, Murph. Think about if I came to you and said, "Hey, dude, I'm from the future. The Raiders and the A's are going to move to Vegas." You'd be like, "Get out of town," right? So it's just
I'd have never would have thunk it. I'd have thought they'd be the St. Petersburg A's or the Portland A's or the Nashville A's. There's a lot of cities that I thought that they would have gone to long before Las Vegas. And if Vegas goes through, you never know. They could end up in one of those cities. And the Raiders, I thought, were a slam dunk for Southern California. It's still, to me, I mean, I get it because Stan Kroenke has Stan Kroenke money, but the NFL moved the wrong team to LA. I mean, let's face it, man.
Of course.
It should be the freaking Raiders.
It should be. It's still a Raider town. There's no question. All right, Murph, listen, I want to thank you for being with me today on the podcast. I know we'll get together again real soon as well. When you get the new fan cave, I'm coming up to Nashville. People keep giving me crap on Twitter about it. I'm coming. But Murph's got to have the new place together, and then I'll be there.
I got to get the digs together, Scott, and we'll roll out the red carpet for you, my friend.
Absolutely. Again, tell everybody how to get in touch with you for the One Nation Foundation and for Raider Fan Radio.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you can go to youtube.com/Raiders Fan Radio. We go live typically every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific and 7 Eastern. And you can also find us on any audio podcast service or any internet connected device. Just ask your Alexa or your Google thing or your Apple thing or whatever thing you got that's connected to the internet. Ask it for Raiders Fan Radio. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button and give us a review and all that good stuff. And even though, a lot of folks can't support our foundation with monetary donations, all we ask is just your support of the show, because the show, as it grows in advertising opportunities, and that generates money for the foundation. So give us a like, give us a thumbs up, give us a subscribe. And if you do want to donate directly, you can go to the One Nation Foundation website, which is onenationfoundation.net. Hit the donate button. It'll take you straight to PayPal, and you can give us money that way. And if you pay enough attention to our show, we do a lot of giveaways too. We call it the Summer of Swag, where my best friend Swag Jeff gives away autographed jerseys, autographed footballs, really cool stuff, man. Amazing. We gave away this Howie Long game day jersey, autographed jersey. And so we just give that stuff away. And for those that donate on the website, just let us know how much you donate, and we will enter you into the drawing for that. So you got a chance to win something cool, and you're providing some cool money for Raiders related charities. So thank you to all of those of you that support the foundation and donate to the foundation and and again, all those things. And thank you, Scott, again for the platform tonight. And this has been fun, man. I can't wait to have you in the fan cave. And I'm so flattered that you asked me to, bring my dopey opinions of being a fan here onto your show. Thank you very much for having me.
You and everybody, Michelle, Swag, Jeff, you guys are great on the show too. And so we appreciate you coming on, and anything we can do to help, we're there to do it, because you guys do so much. So thanks for
can I shout?
Yes.
Sorry, I got to shout one last thing.
Yeah.
We also took on a brand new Raiders related charity this year. They're called Raider Dad.
Yes.
And they provide trips for underprivileged kids and their families to Raider games. And the first one that we've supported with the One Nation Foundation, we supported the preseason game this year. And so me and Swaggy are going out to the Raiders 49ers game for preseason. So if we're doing a Voice of the Fan segment after the show, we'll catch up with you live from Allegiant Stadium after that game's over. The Raiders' only preseason game this year. It's at home in Allegiant Stadium. And shout out the Raider Dad folks. And again, just another example of another charity where the One Nation Foundation is supporting, and we're taking a whole busload of kids to a Raider game that normally would never get a chance to go, and their families.
Yes, and we've had him on the show actually a couple times.
You got Josh on?
Yes, Josh on a couple times. Yeah,
cool.
So we are there with you on Raider Dad. Is such a cool chair. It's such a great deal that he set up, and it's starting to grow really fast. And so I'm glad to hear you guys are supporting it as well.
Absolutely, thank you.
Cool, man. I will talk to you soon. I appreciate you being here.
All right, thanks, Scott. Have a good night.
All right, there you go. That was Murph from Raiders Fan Radio. Always fun to mix it up, and he's with us on the post-game shows during the season. So make sure you join us with there too, and make sure you follow them all on Twitter. It's a good time. He's always tells it like it is. And he's a huge fan, but you know what? He's also a realist. He follows that. He will be positive, but he also will be real. So Got to like that. Some fans don't want to do that, but Murph will tell it like it is. So we appreciate him being there. All right. Mo and I will be back on Thursday where we'll run down the latest coming out of Henderson and what's going on with this Raiders roster. Apparently today, as you heard, they're not going to do much to it, but I think they still will. We'll see what happens, but we'll catch you up on that. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast here, Silver and Black Today, and Odyssey Original. Until next time, everybody, for Murph, for our producer, Mike, I am Scott Gulbransen. We'll talk to you next time, Raider Nation.